You're very welcome here, joining us in the Cathedral Hall, in St Eugene's Cathedral in Derry. As some of you may remember, in Catholic Schools Week we had a number of conversations with people involved in Catholic education. Then during Lent, on the evenings, we had COVID conversations, people talking about their experience of COVID and what faith had meant to them in different circumstances affecting their lives. And now we're beginning the week leading up to Good Shepherd Sunday, Vocations Sunday. And we want to have a number of conversations, 5 each evening this week, Monday through to Friday at 7 p.m. on the Cathedral Hall, on the idea of vocation. And I want to begin by reading a little quotation I got recently. Someone sent it to me. A French Catholic writer of a century ago, Léon Blois, frequently wrote this sentence. It's one of the most profound sentences, this person said, that I've ever read. There's only one tragedy in the end: not to have been a saint. And then the person who sent it to me said, this is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to be a saint, nothing less. And the idea of vocation is actually people discovering what their path to sainthood is, what they are called to be, the circumstances in which they can best become the saint that God dreams of them being. And we're beginning our conversations tonight with a young couple who were married, both of them before they were 25. Emmet and Emma Jo Mullen, who've agreed to join us this evening to talk about their sense of vocation and how they've come, perhaps counterculturally, to be married so early in life, to be having a family, and what their faith means to them on that journey. So thank you very much for coming along, having the courage to join us here this evening. You're both locals, essentially.
Yeah.
And I understand you met through sport. You're both very involved in sport. Swimming was your forte,
Yeah.
and triathlon.
Yeah.
Would you want to tell us just your background in sport, first of all, because I know that's what you ended up studying as well.
Yeah. So I joined the triathlon club, the local triathlon club, the Northwest Club, for fitness, just swimming. They'd done a swimming session every Thursday night. So I joined it, and I wasn't very good. I was down in the slower lanes, and as I got a bit fitter, I made my way up. As it goes up, it gets faster. So I made my way up faster and faster, and noticed that in the fastest lane, the very fastest swimmer in the pool was a girl around my age, so that made me a bit more interested maybe, and stuck around the triathlon club a bit longer maybe because of that. But
And you were still at school at this stage, were you?
still at school, I was probably 16 or 17, so
Yeah.
in lower sixth, and got
And,
to know
and
Emmet.
you weren't going to let her be faster than you, were you? That?
Well, that was my goal, to try and get faster than the fastest person there, and it just happened to be Emmet Jo. So we became friends initially and trained together, and looked forward to that Thursday night, the training, and to get to see her and get to know her more, and that's basically how it started.
And you did triathlons,
Yeah, I done triathlons.
and you've done a triathlon as well.
I started off swimming, and then when I was 17 or 18, I started going to triathlon club with my daddy, and then Emmet started showing up on top of my feet, and I wasn't very pleased with it at the start. I used to tell my daddy, that boy keeps tipping my feet, and I'd say, I'll not stick around for long.
In swimming, tipping your feet's like a bad etiquette. So
Yes.
I was a newbie, so I didn't really know. If you're getting close to the person in front, you shouldn't touch your feet. But I used to batter the feet off Emma Jo to try and get past her. But
Yeah.
I never got faster than her, so
Yeah,
she still holds that record in the family.
very good. And then you both studied, at least for different lengths of time, locally and across the water,
Yep.
Yeah.
sports sciences.
We both went to England initially. I went to Leeds to do sports science, and then we went to Manchester to do sports science. It's only about an hour and a half, or I might be wrong, an hour and a half or 2 hours distance, but it was too far for us. So after a few weeks, we both sort of agreed it wasn't the right thing for us, and we moved back home together. And I studied at the Tech, and Emma Jo worked as a swimming teacher, and then eventually, after a few years in Tech, I went back to England. We both went to Cornwall to finish the degree in sports science as well, and Emmet Jo done foundation degree in sports science there as well. So,
Good. But obviously, you had come to realise at an early stage that you were made for each other, that you were inseparable.
Yep. I think it was 3 months after we met we decided that we wanted to get married. But we were just about too young at that
And you
stage.
were only 17 at that stage or something?
yeah,
17.
which is probably, I suppose, most people think a bit crazy, and at the time, because Therese Ferry asked me to do a video on the vocation for the Catechetical Centre last week, so I was just thinking about this, and I don't think I ever thought about marriage, or like when I was 16 or 17, it never crossed my mind that I would want to be married at a certain age, or never probably crossed my mind, just sports and whatever I was doing. So, but it just felt right then that when I did meet Emma Jo, that I don't think I imagined not spending my life with her and not marrying her, so
Wonderful.
it seemed natural.
And obviously faith has been important for both of you down through the years.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were saying, that we were talking about it the other day. Like, why do we get married? Because we never really thought about it before, and we could love each other without being married, and have children without being married, and live together without being married. So I think our faith is what actually made us get married, and what we thought God wanted us to do. So that's probably why we actually got married.
I think so. I think by getting married and with our faith, you're including God into your marriage, and you're walking that journey with God at the centre, and it's the marriage is between me and Emma Jo, but God as well, and He's central. He's a central part of our everyday life and our decisions and our arguments and our everything. So it's just part of it.
And there's something sacred about your relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
And something of eternal beauty, value, that somehow or other, this is your path to holiness.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you proposed then?
I did, yes. Yeah. It wasn't the most dramatic of proposals, but he enjoyed it and he said yes, so it worked.
And you weren't entirely surprised. Delighted that you said yes. But I suppose by that stage you probably had come to realise there's nobody else.
Yeah.
This was not a 16, 17-year-old's infatuation. This was the real thing.
Yeah. It was, as I said, it felt really natural, and it just felt like the thing to do, and we definitely, well, I'm speaking for myself, I prayed about it, and I'm sure Emma Jo did too, but I never felt that it was like should I not, or it was this decision or that decision. It just felt, and as we were talking about this yesterday as well, I think it's like, it's not a destination. Marriage or getting married isn't something that we plan 10 years time we'll get married. It just, let's get married because it's what we wanted to do and we felt was right and what God was calling us to do, and then go through life together in that journey with each other and with God, and anything that we came across or encountered or what might lie ahead, we're going to do it together.
Because those are profound words, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, and sickness and health, all the days of our life. I mean, that must have put a lump in your throat whenever you're saying it, not just practicing it, but saying it, looking at one another straight in the face. Have you a good memory of your wedding day?
Yeah.
We
We have a video as well, so I can watch it back.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
It's definitely something that everyone says flies on. It definitely does. It was a great day, and obviously it was special for us, but it flies on. So anyone that is getting married, I would say just slow down and enjoy it, because it's gone before you know it. The actual day.
Why do you think that so many of your generation seem reluctant to settle down? Seem reluctant to say, I want to be with you all the days of my life? Because the average age for getting married now must be in the early 30s. Even the average age for having your first child, or certainly a couple having their first child together, can be much later now than it would have been in the past. Why do you think it is? Have any ideas why your generation seems more reluctant than in previous times to make that commitment? Difficult question, maybe.
It is
So
difficult.
put it another way, I'm sure many people find it strange that you got married so early.
I think it's people say to you, like, you're very young to be married, and I suppose years ago it was completely normal, or even younger than us, that you were to get married, and I'm not sure exactly why. Socially, things have changed, and different things have become more important, careers and stuff
Mortgages.
like that, and mortgages and stuff.
Traveling.
'Cause it's
Going to the Olympics.
well, that's the thing. I think there's a lot of things fed out in the society that, and not that it's wrong, but like they go after a career or anything. But that's what we were saying. Just I think people see marriage as maybe getting in the way or something like that. But we just didn't see it like that. We thought like we had spent a few years together as boyfriend and girlfriend. We knew we wanted to get married, and why would we wait any longer? And something
This is
we
the
wanted
most
to do.
wonderful thing we could ever want to achieve.
Yeah. So I'm not sure maybe why people don't, or why they push it back, but maybe it's what you were saying. They feel that they can still have that relationship without getting married and still love each other without getting married. But for us, I think it was just the element of our faith and bringing God into it and telling Him that this is what we're doing and what we felt called.
And making a permanent commitment, not a semi-detached one.
Yeah.
We'll see how long this lasts. But no, I will be faithful to you
Yeah.
until death do us part.
Yeah, I
But
think
you-
that's a big part of it, the commitment, and as I said earlier, it's not always easy, and it's not always, and I'm sure it's the same as any vocation. There's struggles, there's times are hard, and obviously we're only a few years into our marriage, and there's a lot of things could happen in terms of in our life that we'll have to deal with, and we don't know what that will be, but we know that we're together, and that's it for.
Yeah, you'd be poorer on your own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, definitely.
And you can still keep up your exercise and your running and so on.
Yeah, squeeze it in
Yeah.
as much as I can, early
Every
mornings.
day.
Whereas you at the present time can't do too much of that.
I'm not doing too much at the minute,
No.
but in between times train quite often as well. So.
And you have one baby already, and
Paul.
you're expecting a second one.
Yeah.
What difference does having your child have to your relationship? How do things change for you? Because you're no longer boss in your own house.
We're a lot less selfish. We didn't realise we were so selfish until I came along with our time, but just making time for him, and I think you think about what you do with your time more whenever you have a child, because you have to think about things that they need, so you have to schedule things a lot more.
You would like, it's amazing, but before you had a child, you think people always say it. Oh, what did you do with your time? But even now, like when he goes to bed at night, that hour together or whatever is just you really enjoy it, and then obviously the time with Paul and with him is good fun as well. But just in terms of our relationship, it's you just have to work together more and be more compromising and be less selfish.
And I suppose there's a joy in seeing a child of yours growing up and changing and learning things and becoming curious about things. And
It's unimaginable before we had children. You can't imagine what they'd look like, or you can't imagine how they would act. But then when the things every day, just every morning when he wakes up, just the wee things, it's great. So it is. You can't imagine life without him, right? Same with the next baby. Is you can't imagine what they're going to be like or how they're going to act, but it's just the moment they're born. It's unbelievable. You just feel a connection straight away.
And obviously, he's growing up in a very stable environment. I mean, he knows you.
Yeah.
He mightn't say too much, but he knows who you are. You're permanent fixtures for him.
Yeah.
He knows life is secure because you're there every morning when he wakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you see it, and I suppose he does things that you realise that that's what you do, and he mimics both of us in different ways. But I think he's a happy child, and he's got both sets of grandparents and some great grandparents, and like that whole environment of and aunties and uncles and stuff. So he's a loving family and upbringing that reflects back to us and has personality. So it's good to see.
Yeah. And obviously it's nice to see aunts and uncles fussing over a grandparent footnote, to see the whole family circle.
Yeah.
Who's welcomed him, the two family circles.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him.
He's first grandchild on both sides of the family, so he's spoiled.
Yeah.
But he definitely has that love.
Yeah, there's that lovely phrase in St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians where he talks about the love of a husband and wife being a sign or sacrament to the world of Christ's faithful love for his church, which is a huge statement. In other words, that a married couple have the ability to reveal God's love to the world in a way that I can't.
Yeah, that's an interesting quote, because even as my work here in the cathedral, a few times people have made comments when they see me about the church, whatever, am I going to be a priest? Or am I trained to be a priest, or am I studying? And it's just funny, that's someone's initial thought when they see a young man working around the chapel. But I think because I am a married man, that maybe I can do that a bit to show God's love by being around and helping at the chapel and being at Mass with Emmet, Joe and Paul and stuff, that does maybe show through a bit. And as you say, in other ways, if from a priest, or that we can't do what priests do, but they can't maybe show what.
No, we can't do what you do. You have a different vocation in the church, and a sacrament for that vocation. Would you have heard much about that when you were doing, say, a marriage preparation course or anything? Did you hear much about that theology of St. Paul about marriage as a sacrament? I find it very inspiring. I just don't know whether young couples actually hear that challenging vision.
I think it probably could be put out there more. I don't think we heard much about it before, or like maybe that could be put out there more. That maybe it's our job, so I'm giving myself a job.
Well, yes,
but maybe that's something that could be put out there more, because a young couple get married, feel like, what do they get married for, or do they have any reason to get married? Can they save the money and spend it on a house or something, so they don't know the importance of that and what their role is when they do decide to get married. So that's something that's interesting.
Yes, a married couple are not just allowed to get married or being blessed to get married, but you're actually being commissioned to have a mission in the church. To tell our crusty bachelors like me, that love and generosity and self-sacrifice and faithfulness, they are possible.
Yeah.
No, it's not mad to believe you can commit yourself to somebody all the days of your life, whatever might face you. That we are capable of wonderful things as human beings. Just as you didn't imagine you'd be running triathlons when you started chasing her up and down the swimming pool. If someone had told you I'd going to run triathlons and said, no, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And yet I think God says we're fit for great generosity, great heroism. Whether it's Sister Claire Crockett, who's been celebrating this week, or whether it's the call to maybe be single and look after somebody else in the family circle, or whatever it happens to be, or be ordained for priestly ministry in the church, or whatever. That we're all called to be saints, as I mentioned that quotation at the start.
I think everyone's vocation is unique to them, and anyone else's vocation might seem odd or strange. So, like for myself, for example, being a priest would seem hard to do, or like, I can never do that, whereas marriage feels natural and something that I could do. So I think maybe anyone like struggling with a vocation or not sure where they are, it's just talking to God about it and praying and getting Him to lead them to where they would feel that God wants them to be, and that then seems less scary because God has a plan for you to do it, and it's meant for you, so it's less daunting.
And deep down in your heart, this is me, or this is us, that this man here is part of your path to holiness, to be a saint, and this woman here is a key part of your path to becoming a saint as well. Which, and maybe that's a very difficult thing for all of us to believe. Believing in God's hard enough for people at times. Actually, to believe that the God who made the sun, the moon, and the stars, however many billions years ago, calls you by name, and says, "I want you to be a couple, because your marriage is going to be a blessing on the world." Yeah. Not just giving life to your children, but that your love will touch people's lives in a way that no one could imagine. Yeah. That you'll bear witness to the importance of love and faithfulness.
Yeah, I think it is. That is something that's hard to believe, but I think again we were talking about this just yesterday, and I think it's something we do both believe that's God put us together and called us to marriage and called us to this life together. So that's what we're doing.
Just outside the cathedral hall here, I mean, a number of months ago I met a man who said to me, my wife, she died just before the lockdown, and I really missed her so much during the lockdown, but what kept me going was the fact that we had 35 years of a loving marriage, and he just couldn't stop smiling about it. You know, that sense that even after her death, he could still say, I just have been so blessed to have been loved. Yeah. And to have been loved into becoming the person I couldn't be without love. Yeah. In other words, he couldn't be his wonderful person without you loving him, and you couldn't be, Emma Jo couldn't be the person she's called to be without knowing that you love her, for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer.
And that's something we're lucky to have as role models, and our parents and our grandparents, that they've had marriages as well that are loving and caring, and showed us the example of tips and how to show that example on to our children as well. So try our best with that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much this evening for sharing your own journey to this stage. You're still very young yet, only in your mid-20s. Please God, you have a long time to go ahead of you. But you've come this far with trust and confidence in the grace of God. And I thank you for sharing your story with us this evening. Emmet Jo, Emmet, Mullen, thank you so much for being here and sharing your sense of God calling you and your vocation.
Thank you.